All right, we're going to go to Roger Stone. I got a big lineup yet. We still have Roger Stone, Annie Cyrus on an update about Afghanistan, Tom Littleton, and Sidney Powell. Roger, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us.
I'm delighted to be back with you. I'm a giant fan of frankspeech.com. I love what you guys are doing here to keep the big boys honest. I mean, there's very few outlets, as you know, where you can still go and get the unvarnished truth without the control and censorship, really, of all mass communications in the United States today. It's not just the internet, as you know, it's network TV, cable TV, half of radio, all print media, the most trafficked areas of the website where the crackdown of censorship is and deplatforming is vicious. So my hat is off to you and to Mike Lindell for turning chicken, whatever, into chicken salad and reviving this as a great communications tool for patriotic Americans.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your saying that. Now, Diamond and Silk, we're just talking about 80. Well, first of all, we were talking about 8,000 hostages on the ground potentially now. We have a report tonight. Logan, give me a thumbs up if you can show my screen here. All right, this is my news website. It's worldviewreport.com, worldviewreport.com. I have a couple websites, as you guys know, but this is where I do a lot of news stories and put stuff up there. Can they see this, Logan? If you go to this right here, White House poised to leave 8,000 Americans as hostages. Internal numbers show White House, I don't want that. Internal numbers show White House poised to leave several thousand Americans behind enemy lines in Afghanistan. Roughly 3,800 Americans have been evacuated from Afghanistan since July 29th, with an estimated 8,000 remaining in the country. An official with direct knowledge of the situation told the Daily Caller on Tuesday. The official told the caller that it seems, quote, doubtful we're going to bring 8,000 Americans home, end quote. Roger, you consulted with many, many presidents. I know you worked with Ronald Reagan. I know you remember the Iranian hostage crisis. That was 66 for 444 days. We are now looking at 8,000 hostages. What say you about all this, Roger Stone?
Well, first of all, I think that you have to review the overall situation. President Biden's instinct to withdraw our troops on a timetable set by the only president in modern time to withdraw our troops from the endless foreign wars in which we seem to have gotten embroiled under the Bushes and the Clintons and remained in the Obamas was Donald Trump. He was right. He ran on this. He was very clear. No more endless foreign wars with no end in sight, spending blood and treasure on goals that are undefinable. He's brought our troops back from Syria. He brought troops back from Iraq. He brought troops back from Afghanistan. The political establishment and the neocons, who both like war and the profit it generates, screamed every time. But in the case of President Trump, when he withdrew troops, he used our technology and our ability to strike from the sky in strategic scalpel-like drone strikes to keep our enemies pinned down and at bay. And we continued to use that tool after the withdrawals. Obama used very aggressive drone attacks on Islamic extremists across the region. When Joe Biden became president, he first announced that he would end the Iranian sanctions, which was a signal to the entire Middle East that he was a patsy. And then he stopped using our drone technology and other airstrikes against the particularly vicious Taliban. So if you had General McInerney on last night, he would tell you, you always cover your retreat. But we had no air cover. That is why this entire matter has collapsed. That is why you have the situation in Afghanistan. It's not that Biden's goals were incorrect, but his execution was completely ham-handed or, as you point out, purposely botched. On the other hand, look at it from the point of view of the Taliban. You see the Iranians raining missiles in Israel. The Russians have just hacked and then given us back the passwords for our biggest pipeline. They also have troops amassed on the border of Crimea. The North Koreans, they've restarted their nuclear weapons program. The Chinese are harassing our vessels in the South China Seas. You don't mess with U.S. flagged vessels. not at least in the days when Donald Trump was president. So all of these things are happening because Joe Biden shows the world weakness. They figured out that he will take any insult. Chinese diplomats dressing down American diplomats at an international conference, unacceptable. Mass murderers. Tell us about the Falun Gong mass murderers. But no, we sat there and took it. They sense weakness. America, once on the move around the globe, extracting us from these foreign adventures that have cost us billions, is now in retreat simply because of the lack of leadership or experience by Joe Biden, who was sold to us as some kind of foreign policy expert, despite being wrong on every major foreign policy issue during his U.S. Senate career.
When we go back to worldviewreport.com, look at this, what he's talking about. China, Russia, Iran, Navy drill announcement shows support for Tehran. So it takes us to an article over at the South China Morning Post, and it states that China, Russia, Iran, they're getting ready for a big announcement. I mean, they're getting ready to announce their big drill, all of them together, in late 21 or early 2022. Roger, they've seen that they can walk all over America. They're not worried. As you're saying, North Korea, China, Russia, Iran, they're going to be on the move now.
Yeah, it is a very sad state of affairs. President Donald Trump rebuilt our military strength. He understood the Eisenhower-Reagan concept of peace through strength, that if you maintained a strong muscular ability militarily, that the world would understand that you couldn't be pushed around. You now see not only the attrition of our military strength, but we are politically cleansing our military branches. So if you're not a liberal Democrat and you don't believe in the narrative woven by the Biden administration about world affairs or the American Constitution, you are mustered out because you must be some kind of domestic terrorist. Look, let's be very clear about this. An American citizen can question the results of the 2020 election. An American citizen can believe if they want that Donald Trump is going to return to the White House. While that would be a great thing, I've never said that I thought that would happen. I respect Mike Lindell. He has excellent lawyers. I'm not an attorney. But nonetheless, I think there'll be more than enough fraud to theoretically justify that, even if there is no precedent. But if you question the safety of the COVID-19 vaccinations, or you question the effectiveness or the impact of the lockdowns, that doesn't mean you're a domestic terrorist. It means you're a concerned American. We don't advocate violence. We want to win the next election.
Right.
We just like it to be fair, free, and honest, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I've worked in the inside of our democratic process. I've seen up close the corroded rectum of the two-party system, and I understand the corruption in Washington, in which the special interests can essentially purchase anything they want. And I know they were upset when that ended under Donald Trump, because nobody owns Donald Trump, not Wall Street, not the banks, not the insurance companies, not Big Pharma, no one. And now we have everything they've asked for, full power, and they're using it to destroy our civil liberties. They admit colluding with the internet giants to censor our free thought and to cancel us. It's right out there in the open. They now boast about it. They seek to criminalize ordinary political behavior, constitutionally mandated and allowed political free speech and behavior.
Is that not what they did to you, Roger?
It's precisely what they did to me. And as you know, the outrageousness is, after 2 years of being vilified, terrorized, threatened, smeared, gagged, lynched, censored, gagged again, deplatformed, pardoned,
raided,
vindicated,
and raided,
as well as being bankrupted, they now began a second false narrative. Because I was in Washington, D.C. on January 5th, and I spoke at 2 legally permitted events. You can go watch my speech. I didn't advocate violence or breaking in anywhere. It is outrageous that I did express my deep appreciation to Jesus Christ and to the Lord, to whom I prayed, that I be delivered from my persecutors, and I do take an extraordinarily apocalyptic view of the struggle of the future for this country. CNN said my invoking of the name of God was inciting violence. I say
Oh
no,
my.
that's religious bigotry, is what that is.
Yeah.
So, but because I was there, an entire false narrative, despite the fact that I wasn't out at the Capitol, I never left my hotel grounds. There is no evidence that I knew anything about this, or that I would think it was a good idea, or was involved in it. But through a technique used as guilt by association, ABC News, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and 1,000 other fake news media outlets run by jackals create a false narrative. Man seen with Roger Stone arrested for trespassing. My favorite, 3 guys who were arrested had a meeting with Stone in front of the Supreme Court. I don't know these guys from Adam, but I figured it out. They were in a crowd of 500 at a speech that I made. That's now a meeting. That's how the fake news media operates. So needless to say, I was jubilant when Reuters and their reporter, Mark Hosenball, who's a tough customer and won't buy any crap from anybody, I think he's a pretty straight reporter, got a high-level FBI source to admit that they had no evidence against me or Alex Jones regarding any larger conspiracy or anything else.
Yeah, here's the headline. FBI finds scant evidence U.S. Capitol attack was coordinated source. Here's another headline about Roger Stone and Alex Jones, not being involved in any of the storming of the U.S. Capitol. I mean, it goes on and on. These articles, but again, this was pretty obvious.
Well, it was, but I guess the most important thing here is, just like the situation I went through personally in terms of the fabricated charges against me in that epic adventure, on Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, at midnight, the Justice Department was forced to release the last remaining long-hidden sections of Mueller's secret report, in which he admitted there was never any factual evidence against me regarding WikiLeaks collaboration, Russian collusion, or any other crime. So, but the media doesn't cover that part. So the people at CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, who said for 2 years I was a traitor, a Russian spy, a traitor to my country, they never published that they were wrong, that there was no evidence. And now, yet again, the media creates a cloud over my head regarding events that I know nothing about, that I denounced immediately, and from a strategic point of view, were politically counterproductive to the goals of Donald Trump. Violence, breaking into a Capitol, trespassing, and menacing lawmakers, that's not a smart idea. That's an excuse to give the government to crack down on your civil liberties because a limited number of people acted stupidly. But for the Democrats to say this was the most violent attack on America since Pearl Harbor, no, the only death was of an unarmed veteran at the hands of a police officer. Nowhere in the United States does trespassing excuse an officer from first-degree murder. Sorry, it's the way the law works, except for in D.C.
Roger, what is your website if people want to visit you or even help you out? Because I think you have a couple of different websites, and one, they can help you, right?
Well, unfortunately, as you may know, out of the blue, the Biden Justice Department filed a really bogus civil complaint against me, implying sensationally that I have evaded taxes, providing no advice that I've ever done so because I haven't, but essentially harassing me over interest and penalties on past taxes. I will demonstrate that every assertion of the government in this complaint is demonstrably false. In fact, I think these prosecutors should be disciplined by the court. That's how egregious the falsity of it is. It's a PR attack. It's sensationalized. But when the DOJ puts out a press release on Friday at 6 o'clock, what does that tell you? Just like DOJ announcing that I had been cleared by Mueller at midnight on Election Day, the busiest news day of the year. So I think it was Churchill said, the lie is halfway around the world while the truth is still putting its pants on.
Right.
That's the problem here. They vilify you, they smear you, so they can justify deplatforming and censoring you. But when the truth is finally revealed, it's ignored. It is in itself hidden. It's frustrating. My wife, shortly after the DOJ action, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. My wife was my rock through my entire trial. She is everything to me. She is a fierce Cuban American, a lover of Donald Trump in this country. She's a great lady, and she is facing stage 4 cancer very stoically, bravely, and she is spiritually in a great place. We are using alternative treatments, such as massive vitamin infusions and so on. She's doing extremely well, surprisingly well. If you want to help us finance those treatments, because they're not covered by what little insurance we had left after the Mueller jihad, you can go to stonefamilyfund.com. If you want to help me beat back the Biden Justice Department, because I'm not settling, I'm going to trial in Miami in front of a judge who was not appointed by Barack Obama, and I'm going to prove that this case against me is a fraud. But that costs money too. So the stonedefensefund.com, stonedefense.com. I'd love to stop raising money and get back to having an honest living like you, talking and writing and speaking about politics. But the deep state doesn't seem to want to leave me alone. And I'm a warrior. I will never stop fighting for this country. I will never stop fighting for the principles that you and I share. You know, to me, it's a natural progression from Goldwater to Reagan to Trump. This is the cause to which I came, and I'm not a quitter, as you know. I actually feel I was born for this moment in time. I've been in training for this moment. We're about to have a huge fight to save this republic, and if God has a role for me, and I'm certain that He does, I believe I've been spared to serve the Lord and the country, and I know He will make it clear to me when the time comes. I'm grateful to be here with you guys, because I, along with so many of your other guests, am so heavily censored and shadow banned and harassed, banned for life on Facebook, banned for life on Twitter. The day that the DC court upheld my bogus, unconstitutional, or I should say illegal sentence, Facebook announced that I would be banned for life because I own 150 over 100 fake Facebook pages. I never owned a single one. But I did have, between my 5 books that I've written and my men's style page, Stone on Style, and my political blog, Stone Cold Truth, about 1.5 million followers, otherwise known as customers. They bought my books through Facebook. And that sustained my family through this entire fight. That's how we really scraped by on the rent and the insurance premiums and the gasoline and the groceries. But of course, that was taken away yet again by the Twitter and Facebook Nazis who will police our thought. That's why I admire Mike Lindell so much, because he's had the courage to take these bullies on. A lesser man might shrink from it. Say anything you want about Mike Lindell. The guy has got cojones like cantaloupes. He's brave. He's courageous. You never have to guess where he stands. He's a real guy. Mike and I don't agree on everything. We just agree on most things. But he's a great, great patriot. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I admire his gumption and his fire. Guy works like a dog for this country.
Yeah, he absolutely does.
He spends his own money. He is indefatigable in his defense of liberty. And I know how much he wants justice regarding the last election, but I also know how concerned he is about future elections. We have to save this republic.
Absolutely. Roger, before we let you go, and I'm going to have you give out your websites again for folks that want to get a pen and paper, but when did the Democrat Party become the party that it is? Because JFK wouldn't have recognized this party. I'm not even so sure Tip O'Neill would have recognized this party. And when did they come to the point where, A, they don't want to debate? I mean, we used to have a show before Fox and all these other places. We had CNN, we had a show called Crossfire. And liberals and Democrats and independents would go on there and fight like cats and dogs on Crossfire, and it was encouraged. And that was kind of what was done. And you had shows like Nightline, and you had other shows where people did this kind of thing. You had the McLaughlin Report and others. And the left and the right would debate, and they would fight, and they would argue, and they would have horrible campaigns and get down in the mud. But at the end of the day, you'd have a victor, and the opponent that lost would concede and move on and fight the next time. And you didn't see either party traditionally using the FBI or the Justice Department, and the FBI wouldn't have tolerated it. That's one thing. Now they've been taken over by the Justice Department. But the Justice Department and the FBI wasn't used as a political tool, traditionally speaking, by either party to go after their opponents. What has happened in America, and when did this happen?
Well, I think that it is fair to say that the Democratic Party always included socialists in a radical faction in their party. And over time, and with a lot of assistance from the Chinese communists, the corporate Democrats woke up and found out that they were no longer in the majority. They've lost control of their party, and the socialist, call that fascist, wing is on the ascendancy. What we see today in the Biden Justice Department and in the Biden administration isn't just weaponizing our judicial system for political purposes. It's actually fascism. You're not allowed, they're being told that there are thought crimes. You cannot think certain things. And they're doing it very, very quickly. John F. Kennedy was a tax cutter. John F. Kennedy was an ardent anti-communist. John F. Kennedy favored a gold or silver-backed dollar. John F. Kennedy was becoming leery of foreign entanglements that were costing more and taking longer than the generals told them they would. John F. Kennedy, by today's standard, would be a Republican. Harry Truman was essentially the founder of the State of Israel. I don't think old Harry would have had much appetite for Islamic extremism and anti-Semitism. So, but the working class, blue collar, white Catholic Democrat Party is a thing of the past. That's why a bartender who's a socialist beats the chairman of the Queens County Democratic Organization, who happens to wear a second hat as a veteran congressman in what we considered a blue collar Democrat district.
You're speaking of Ilhan Omar.
I'm speaking of AOC.
Oh, AOC, excuse me.
Who beat Congressman Joe Crowley in an upset.
Yeah.
And you see this funded left effort within their party to increase the numbers in the Socialist Caucus, which is already driving Pelosi because she really can't move forward without their votes. The House count ended up far closer after the last election because the congressional elections, I think, had less fraud than the presidential races. Now, there are races where members of Congress ran ahead of President Trump, but no polling supported that happening prior to the race in that district. Further proof of voter manipulation. What we call that is anecdotal evidence, if one was a political scientist. So the Democratic Party is in this situation in which Joe Biden is a figurehead president. Susan Rice is running our disastrous foreign policy. Ron Klain, who was chief of staff to Biden in the Senate, then I believe chief of staff to Vice President Al Gore, ran the Florida recount for Al Gore. Gotcha there, pal. Is running the domestic policy. I think all major decisions are cleared with Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama, shall we say, has a disproportionate influence in this administration, as in Obama 3.0. Joe Biden is clearly not, in the best of health. He's more lucid on other times, sometimes than others. I don't have any ill will towards him, but some days he just doesn't seem to know where he is. It is almost frightening watching him wandering around bewildered at these international conferences. I feel sorry for him. It's very clear his wife is his handler. But I think this is the manifestation of the next year of Obama. The mustering out of professional soldiers and non-globalists, occasionally Republican, from the upper echelons of our military service is now obvious. We not only have an FBI that's woke, we have a military and a Pentagon that's woke. And this humiliating spanking we just took in Afghanistan, and simply because it was the execution of the policy that was wrong. I support bringing our troops home. We bled and spent enough on Afghanistan, and now we know that the Afghan army and police will not stand up and fight for themselves. So if they won't fight for themselves, why should we continue to squander lives and money there? But there's a way to do this, as Donald Trump was able to do repeatedly. Now, every time he wanted to withdraw men, they talked him down in the size, and it took multiple extractions, but the policy is the right one. It's time to end these foreign wars.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this in closing, then we have you give your websites again. The Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, all these guys, public-private partnerships, big corporate fascism, big government, big business, the Great Reset. Are they going to collapse this economy in America on purpose by putting us back into lockdowns, COVID passports, making doctors and nurses leave their jobs, particularly young nurses who want to have children and are afraid of becoming infertile, other people, other businesses, truckers? I mean, this is getting crazy. I don't think our country can handle a lockdown and have a free market system go through this again and survive. Are they deliberately going to collapse this economy to justify the Great Reset? I mean, you know all about Keynesian economics and printing money and all of that.
They can only get away with it if we don't have free, fair, honest, transparent elections. They are creating the backdrop for the greatest comeback in American political history. The people who want to put America first in this country are decidedly in the majority, but only if everybody gets one vote, and only people who are legally qualified to vote are allowed to vote.
Wow.
Their agenda is stunning, but there's no question that they're moving back to the lockdowns and the economic stagnation and failure that will ultimately cause. At the same time, they're going to make it mandatory for our active military to take a COVID-19 vaccination, about which there are many, many valid medical questions. They've done their best to suppress this, but these are not lollipops. There are traces to all kinds of extraordinary side effects. There are legitimate questions of why some of the ingredients in these temporarily approved vaccinations are identified elsewhere by the FDA as being too dangerous to ever inject or ingest into the human body, but there they are in a temporarily approved FDA vaccination. Why? It's not an unreasonable question. Doesn't make me a domestic terrorist or a conspiracy theorist. Those are facts. It's a reasonable question. But Dr. Fauci doesn't answer any questions. By the way, I just want to remind you, I was charged and convicted of lying to Congress. Fauci lied to Congress about our funding in the Wuhan lab. Why haven't 29 FBI agents stormed his home at 6 o'clock in the morning?
With CNN in tow.
With CNN in tow.
Give your websites again, please, Roger.
Yes, please. If you want to follow me, my political doings and analysis, you can go to stonecoldtruth.com. If you want to help Mrs. Stone and our family in this time of crisis, you can go to stonefamilyfund.com. Your prayers are also appreciated. And if you want to help me in my next round in fighting the Biden Justice Department in their latest attempt to illegitimately destroy me, you can go to stonedefensefund.com. Lawyers are expensive, and they wiped me out in the last round, but I'm not going to settle a case in which I've done nothing wrong, a case based on political harassment. God bless you for having me again. It's always great to be here. Oh, by the way, the hat, birthday present from my personal attorney, Tyler Nixon, a custom-made hat from the 20s. It looked so snappy, I had to wear it. My birthday is Friday, August 27th, the same day as President Lyndon Johnson. Check out my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, a New York Times bestseller.
Hey, I want to get you on sometime only on that topic. Can we?
Absolutely.
I just went to Daily Plaza took a bunch of pictures and video and showed my family and told them everything.
So much
I wanna
smaller, so much smaller than you thought, isn't it?
Oh my, yes. Yes. I've been to Dallas so many times, so many times. I just never had the time to go there. We went out to dinner after CPAC. I said to my son, how far are we from Dealey Plaza? Can't be too far. It was 0.04 miles, so less than a half a mile. I said, we're going. I couldn't, my wife and my son, who's my producer, Logan said, I have not seen my dad this excited in a long, long time getting out of the car, walking to Dealey Plaza. My excitement was to be there after years, decades of studying this, and to see the book depository, to see the grassy knoll, to see the very spot there where the Zapruder film was filmed by Mr. Zapruder, to see the X in the street, to see the cutout, the gutter there, and know, okay, here are all the different scenarios. You can figure out which one you believe, but here are the different theories of how this took place. It was fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the most important point is, based on Secret Service regulations and the strong recommendation of the Secret Service, President Kennedy would never have taken a route to the merchandise right where the car would come to a full stop and have to make a hard turn. He would go on the freeway. So they violated Secret Service protocol to take him through Dealey Plaza. Why? Who insisted on that? Why?
Okay.
It was Vice President Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Okay, I'm going to order that book.
Connolly. There you go.
I'm going to order that book. What'd you say about Connolly?
Connolly was the governor of Texas. Connolly
Right.
told the head of the Secret Service, we're driving through Dealey Plaza or the invitation of the president is canceled.
Wow.
Jerry Bruno, John F. Kennedy's lead advance man, writes in his biography, the fastest way to and safest way to the merchandise mart was the freeway. But Johnson and Connolly insisted we drive through Dealey Plaza. Boom. There it is.
All right, I'm going to order the book. I'm going to mark it up. I'm going to have you back just on that book, because the audience doesn't know that I am a major JFK assassination junkie. I've watched the 5 hours of the men who killed Kennedy. I want to get your book. I'm very intrigued by all this. I want to get it, read it, and then have you back on. All right?
I would love to do that. It's very interesting that the Kennedy assassination remains for the American people the ultimate murder mystery. The folks at the National Enquirer, whenever their cover is a story that relates even today to the Kennedy assassination and new developments or unearthed news, they print and sell 600,000 more copies than they normally do. The American people are endlessly fascinated. And even with the 3 television networks and most of the print media continuing to promulgate the lie that the Warren Commission got it right, the last Gallup poll showed 73% of Americans did not believe Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy or that he acted alone, which shows that the people are smarter than the media.
Okay, so I'm going to order that book. Will you remind me, Logan? Get that done, get you back on, because, I think it's a fascinating topic, and I want to spend a whole hour with you on it, and we'll promote the dickens out of that book.
I'm in. I love that. We'll do it.
All right, let's do it. We'll get that book to you in the next couple of days.
Many thanks.
Thank you, Roger.